is a law student and an interpreter for the victim's father, Mr. Abdulbaki Todashev. Then we have attorney Eric Ludin with the law firm of Tucker and Ludin, which is one of the firms that is joining us as co-counsel on this case. We have Yvette Acosta Macmillan from the ACLU. We're very thankful to have her support today, and Ahmed Yakzan from the law firm of Tucker and Ludin.
Do you need to spell those names?
Yes, let me spell those names. Victoria is Viktorya. Johnson, Johnsson. Myself, Hassan, Hassan. Last name Shibli, Shibly. Mr. Eric Ludin, ERIC LUDIN. Yvette is spelled Yvette. Is YVETTE. Acosta, ACOSTA. Macmillan, MAC capital MILLAN. Ahmed Yakzan, AHMAD. Yakzan, YAKZAN. And Mr. Abdulbaki Todashev, ABDULBAKI. Todashev, TODASHEV. So CARE Florida is a premier civil rights organization for all people. In our office alone, we have over four full-time attorneys working to defend victims of discrimination and government harassment, regardless of their faith, their race, or their religion. And the reason we are involved in this case because of the very strong civil rights implications it potentially has. We're gathered here today for this press conference for three purposes. One is to introduce our client, and so you can hear from him about the wonderful son that he has lost and the suffering he has gone through as a result. And you will also hear about his dedication to seek justice for his son, who was shot 7 times while he was unarmed and suffering from a knee injury as he was being interrogated by FBI agents in his own home after 4 hours of interrogation. We are also here to welcome and thank the Department of Justice and the State Attorney, Mr. Jeff Ashton's criminal investigation into the shooting of Ibragim Todashev, and to really express our full confidence that we have that they will do a thorough and a fair job and ensure that if there is any abuse, it will not be tolerated, and that any wrongdoing on behalf of the officers will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We would also like to announce that two high-profile law firms have joined this case, and we believe that the involvement of these attorneys will show the seriousness of this case to the public and to the federal officials. As I said, we would like to thank the Department of Justice and the Orange County Sheriff's Attorney, Mr. Jeff Ashton, for conducting their own independent criminal investigation into why an unarmed Florida resident was shot to death 7 times at least by federal agents after hours of interrogation in his own home. We find comfort knowing how serious Mr. Ashton's office is taking this matter. Our primary concern is to ensure the integrity of this investigation and that justice prevails. Let me be clear, this is not just about the Muslim community, but about the civil rights of all Americans. We have a very strong and a diverse legal team of Jewish, Muslim, Christian, even Buddhist attorneys working together to ensure that justice prevails in this case. What makes America so great is that no legal authority is above the law. My own cousin was shot and killed in Syria a few months ago, and if I were to go to that country and ask why my cousin was killed, I myself would be persecuted. That's the greatness of this country, is that when an unarmed citizen is taken by his own government and killed by federal officers, we have the right, in fact the duty, to question the government why it happened and make sure that any wrongdoing is brought to justice. This case is about police accountability and justice. We cannot tolerate a system without police accountability. I don't think people want to live in a country where they fear that they may get killed by federal agents in their own home. We are seeking a fair and thorough investigation. The bottom line, and I think something that we can all agree on, is that Mr. Todashev, Ibragim Todashev, should never have been killed, and we need to understand why that happened and what could be done to ensure this never happens again, and also to bring justice to his family. So, in the next part, we would like to introduce that attorney Barry Cohen is joining this case as lead counsel. He will be joining our legal team as lead counsel, along with the law firm of Tucker and Ludin. Attorney Barry Cohen, who is recognized as one of the top attorneys in the States, is the attorney who judges and lawyers go to when they need legal help, and we're very honored to have him join our legal team as co-counsel. We believe this will show the seriousness of this case to the federal agents and the public. Also, we are very thankful to have the American Civil Liberties Union. We're very thankful to have the ACLU support with us today. And I want to introduce Yvette Acosta-Macmillan to say a few words about their involvement in this case. And we really want to thank them for their support in ensuring that the civil rights of all people are protected.
The journalist on the conference call who is typing, please mute their telephone.
Good morning, everybody. As Hassan said, I'm Yvette Acosta-Macmillan with the ACLU. And the ACLU has been very involved in this case, even though it's kind of been on the margins. But as you may all be aware, we requested independent investigations both in Massachusetts and in Florida. In Florida, we requested that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement conduct an independent investigation of what happened when Ibragim Todashev was shot. Unfortunately, we have received responses saying that they are deferring to the FBI, which was one of the arguments that we put in for an independent investigation, was that the FBI should not be investigating itself. There was a New York Times report after much research that indicated that the last 150 shootings involving FBI agents, after the FBI conducted investigations, they were all determined to be justified. So, needless to say, we would like somebody else to have, or would have liked somebody else to conduct that investigation. Therefore, we're very supportive of the Orange County State Attorney's Office for their proposed investigation. After we requested the investigations, we have proceeded to submit public records requests to both the Orange County Police Department and the Orange County, not the Orange County Police Department, I'm sorry, the Orlando Police Department and the Orange County Medical Examiner. From the Police Department, we requested all documents that were prepared prior to and after the shooting, and from the Medical Examiner, we requested the autopsy report and all video recordings and photographs. The Police Department has not responded yet, but the Medical Examiner did respond with what we expected, saying that the FBI had indicated that there is an ongoing investigation and that therefore these records are exempt from the Florida Public Records Law. Yesterday we submitted to the Medical Examiner a request for clarification, which we can do pursuant to Florida's Public Records Law, asking her to clearly specify exactly why these particular records are exempt, if there is a criminal investigation by the FBI, and further details in order to justify the exemption. We'll see what they answer and we'll proceed with that, whatever we need to do after that. Finally, the ACLU would like to credit Mr. Todashev for not giving up, for being the parent that he is, fighting for answers in the death of his father, and of his son rather, and we will continue to support in whatever we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette. We're really glad to have your support and thankful for that. I would now like to introduce Mr. Eric Ludin from the law firm of Ludin to talk about their involvement in the case, as well as about our co-counsel, Mr. Barry Cohen. Eric, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley. My name's Eric Ludin. I'm an attorney, been practicing in Clearwater and St. Petersburg for 31 years now. And with me is one of our attorneys, Ahmed Yaksin, who is also going to be very actively involved with this case. Together we represent the Todashev family, along with the attorneys at CARE and with attorney Barry Cohen and his law firm. We're going to be representing him during the criminal investigation and during any civil action that may follow. Mr. Cohen could not be here today because we were all retained rather soon prior to this press conference, but if you would like any comments from him, you can feel free to contact his office, and I'm sure he'd be happy to speak with you. Mr. Cohen and I agreed to represent the Todashev family because we believe the people in this country, regardless of their religion, their race, their ethnicity, and their immigrant status, deserve to be treated fairly by our government and law enforcement. We believe that Mr. Todashev, as any father would, deserves a thorough explanation about what happened to his son when he was alone in his house with state and federal law enforcement officers and then killed. I reached out to Barry Cohen and asked him to join me as co-counsel on this case as part of our legal team because of his long history of standing up to governmental officials who do not share our belief in fundamental fairness, justice, and basic human rights. And I know that he is not afraid to battle anyone on behalf of the Todashev family, and neither am I. Mr. Cohen, myself, and the attorneys at CARE are absolutely thrilled to know that State Attorney Ashton is leading a criminal investigation into the events that led to our client's son's killing. We have every reason to feel confident that it will be aggressive, thorough, and a complete investigation, and will uncover the truth of what happened. We believe that if the facts show improper conduct, Mr. Ashton will hold the law enforcement officers accountable. Our legal team will cooperate with the state attorney, and we look forward to an opportunity for our client to meet with Mr. Ashton and tell him about this young man who was killed in his home. We intend to demonstrate to Mr. Todashev and his family that in this great country there can be justice. Now, I'd like to introduce, this is Mr. Todashev sitting next to me. And we have some photographs we'd like to share with you that I'd like to explain. And if you'd like to get pictures of the photographs after the press conference, you're welcome to do that. After that, Mr. Todashev is going to give a statement. He has a very difficult time expressing his opinions because he is in mourning and he's just very distraught about the loss of his son, and he's asked me if he could refrain from answering questions after his statement. So he's going to make a statement, and then he's not going to answer any questions after that. I have
hold on one second.
Hold on. I just hold my microphone. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Sorry, guys.
one moment. What I have are photographs of Ibragim Todashev both from his youth and also from more recent years. Mr. Todashev will tell you that his son was a loving young man a caring young man, a peaceful young man, and I'll put these and was totally shocked about the circumstances surrounding his death. And here are more recent photographs that I'll share with you. Just prior to this incident, Ibragim Todashev had serious knee surgery. I have some photographs which I can share with you later of the scarring of his knee. We also have some photographs that were taken of the funeral, and I'll share those with you at the conclusion of the press conference. Mr. Todashev?
I would like to say a little bit about my son.
У меня сына уже много про меня рассказали, поэтому я просто о сыне расскажу. Детство, какой он был, и вообще, какой он мальчик был. Был очень талантливый.
Many things were said about me already, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about my son from his childhood and on.
Был энергичный, талантливый, добродушный
My son
человек.
was very energetic and he was a talented and very kind person.
Любил друзей, старался всем помочь.
He loved his friends and he tried to help everybody he could.
Был всегда душой и лидером компании среди своих друзей.
He was always the heart and soul of the company of his friends.
Друзья любили и уважали его.
His friends really loved him and respected him.
Он был ответственный и обязательный.
He was very responsible and conscientious.
Мой сын был очень хороший. Очень хорошим мальчиком.
My son was a very good boy.
Хорошим внуком для дедушки и бабушки.
He was a good grandson for his grandparents.
Хорошим братом.
He was a good brother.
Хорошим соседом.
He was a good neighbor.
Хорошим родственником.
He was a good family member.
Мы его все любили,
We loved him all very much.
как и он нас.
And he loved us back.
Он был очень общительный.
He was very social.
Он очень любил спорт,
He loved the sports very much.
уважал старших,
And he respected the elderly.
любил своих братьев и сестер,
He loved his brothers and sisters.
но собрался ехать домой. Он получил грин-карту.
So he decided to go home after he had received a green card.
Купил подарки всем близким, родственникам и друзьям.
He has bought the presents for all of his family members and friends.
Купил билет на 24 мая
He had bought a ticket for the 24th of May
2013 года.
of 2013.
Но с 21 на 22 мая ночью его жизнь оборвалась.
But at night of the 21st to the 22nd, his life was cut short.
Он ничего плохого не делал.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Он не способен на это.
He was simply not capable of doing it.
Он был очень хорошим мальчиком.
He was a very good boy,
Он хотел жить.
and he wanted to live.
Я приехал в Америку, полагаясь на американское правосудие,
I came to America to rely on American legal system,
что добьюсь справедливости.
that I will be able to pursue and achieve the justice for my son.
Я благодарен Совету американо-исламских отношений,
I'm very thankful to the Council on American-Islamic Relations
что они помогли мне найти одних из лучших адвокатов
that they had helped me to find one of the best law firms,
в лице Берри Коуэна и Эрика Людина.
the law firms of Barry Cohen as well as Eric Ludin.
Я уверен, что справедливость восторжествует.
And I'm certain that we will be able to achieve justice.
Я молюсь, чтобы ни одна мать и ни один отец не испытали в жизни то, что испытываю я и мать Ибрагима.
I hope and pray that no mother and no father will ever have to endure and go through what I'm going through right now.
Мой сын очень хорошим мальчиком был. Он не виновен. Его просто убили.
My son was a very good boy and he is innocent and he was simply killed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Abdulbaki, for your really bravery, courage, and standing up for the justice for your son, but not just for your son, for all Americans and all people who believe in the rule of law. As I mentioned, we're very excited to have Mr. Eric Ludin and Barry Cohen join us as co-counsel on this case. Mr. Cohen really has a high sense of justice and is not scared to take on the system and hold the highest authorities to the rule of law. We are thrilled that U.S. Attorney or State Attorney Ashton is doing a criminal investigation. We have full confidence it will be thorough and that law enforcement will be held accountable if appropriate. With that, we'd like to open it up for any questions and answers relevant to what we discussed today. I want to invite Mr. Ludin to join me on the podium to address any questions and answers.
Has Mr. Todashev gotten the ME's report?
No,
Gotten the
no.
medical examiner report?
Mr. Todashev has not gotten the medical examiner report. We immediately requested a copy of the medical examiner report because a lot of our findings depended on what was found in the medical examiner report. However, the FBI barred the medical examiner report, medical examiner's office from releasing that report.
Even to the family?
Even to the family. And that was very upsetting. Now I think we tend to understand the reason it was barred is potentially because of the criminal investigation. And in fact, it was barred because of the criminal investigation potentially into the officers involved, as we understand it.
Usually families get it.
We have a question as well, Dr. Compel.
Yeah, just a minute, please.
I mean, can you shed some light on that? Usually family members are entitled to
That's
medical exam.
normally that is true, but in this case, because there's a criminal investigation and that the subjects of the criminal investigation could possibly be law enforcement officers, we've not yet been, that's the explanation that's been given, and we have not yet received them.
Yeah.
Mr. Ludin,
One second, let's take one from the conference call. You had something?
Yes, hi, this is Maria Cicchetti with the Boston Globe. We have heard reports that Mr. Todashev was visited by the FBI and wanted to ask if that's true and if he's been questioned and what they asked and how he feels about that.
Okay. Yes, the FBI did attempt to question Mr. Todashev, but he did not speak to them because he didn't have any attorneys present at the time.
And I think if anything, what happened unfortunately with his son taught a very important reminder for all of us that you should never meet with law enforcement without an attorney present. That is our constitutional right as Americans. That's what makes America so great, and it's our duty to protect those freedoms and liberties that are enshrined in the Bill of Rights for all people.
Mr. Ludin, I just want to make sure, there's been some talk that there may be a wrongful death suit filed against the FBI. That has not happened at this point, but you're reserving that down the road? Is that
That's
what you're
exactly
saying?
right. We're going to let the criminal investigation play itself out. We want to find out what the results of the criminal investigation are. A civil action may be appropriate at that time.
You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to elaborate on that. Besides wrongful death, are there any other avenues on the civil side that you all can pursue? Or is that
That's to be determined. We've left all options open. We want to wait and see what the criminal investigation reflects.
How do you know that he's been shot,
Those of us
that
on
he
the
was
phone,
shot
can you
7
give us a rundown of the names? It was hard to hear each of the names of the speakers.
We will do that at the end. Sorry, you were asking a question?
How do you know that he was shot 7 times
Right.
if the ME...
Well, we have his friends and family. They washed his body. They prepared it for the burial, and we have the photographs of his body where there's about over a dozen bullet wounds and injuries on the body. But again, we can't confirm the exact nature of all those injuries until we have the medical exam report. That's why we're not releasing our preliminary investigation as of yet.
There's been some reports that he was armed, but you're saying that absolutely is not the case, was not the case, correct?
Our sources have said that he was unarmed during the incident.
But our preference is not to comment on what happened in that house, but to allow the criminal investigation to be completed. But based on everything that we've learned, we have absolutely no reason to think there was any kind of a deadly weapon in the possession of our client's son.
we've heard knife, sword.
That's
Was there
right.
anything like that? I mean, I guess you don't know.
I've heard that from you, from the media, but I have no reason in fact to believe that that's true.
Have you been to his home since?
So
Has evidence been collected?
Right.
So you might not have seen it? You know, I'm just trying to.
We've hired private investigators to go through the scene. You know, at best, what was available in his home at that time was a decorative, non-sharp sword that they actually hold with the blade once to open a car that was, the door that was stuck. So that's the most, and that was distant in the room. And our position is, look,
But I mean, they would have collected evidence. If there were something that they say he grabbed, it wouldn't be there when you went to.
right, right.
So you don't know. Truth be told, you don't know.
Well, I mean, I think what's clear is that our sources within the Department of Justice and the FBI have said that it appears he was unarmed when this whole thing happened. And remember, the onus is on the FBI. If they're questioning somebody who they believe is dangerous, which we have no reason to believe he was dangerous, but if they're questioning somebody in his home, I think it's the onus is on them to make sure the area is secure. And if they didn't, then they didn't do a professional job, and policies need to be changed, people need to be reprimanded.
What do you think happened in that room?
Our investigation, by the way, just to follow up what we're saying, our investigation seems to indicate that there was no deadly weapon that was in my client's possession, my client's son's possession. There's a reason why Mr. Ashton is doing a criminal investigation. And we have theories of what happened, but it would be inappropriate for us to theorize about what happened. And that could interfere in some way with Mr. Ashton's investigation. We want to be as cooperative with him as possible, and so we aren't going to comment on what we think happened in that room, except that we think it was not a justified killing.
You say sources indicate that there wasn't a weapon in the home. What are those sources? I mean, is that a reliable one, or is this just what friends say?
No. We're not talking about friends. We're talking about sources involved in the investigation.
What do you know about why Mr. Todashev's son was being investigated by the FBI to begin with?
I mean, as far as we know, in they used to go to the same gym that the suspects in Boston used to attend. And the FBI really had a pattern that afterwards they went to pretty much everyone who had any degree of relationship or knowledge of the Boston suspects, and they went to question them all.
I think it's important to mention, because it's reflected in the photographs, that one of the individuals involved in the Boston bombing was involved in fighting. Some kind of competitive fighting. There's a gym where people train for that, and my client's son also trained at that gym for a period of time, so they were an acquaintance. I think that the FBI, in its effort to do a complete investigation of what happened in Boston, made it a point to speak to anybody who was an acquaintance of the bombing suspects. But other than being an acquaintance, we know of no other reason why they were speaking with our clients.
There was mention that he might have been a suspect in a triple murder.
Yeah, we've heard that rumor as well.
Well, but that's another reason.
That had never been mentioned to him or his friends who were with him during the questioning before that. So the first that came out was after the shooting, after he was killed.
Okay, so
We have no.
his friend says he was never questioned about it, but he knows whether Ibrahim was questioned about it?
That, as far as Ibrahim told him throughout the process, they had never mentioned anything besides his knowledge of the Boston suspect.
You should know, I want to make this point clear as well. The FBI reached out to Mr. Todashev's son and spoke to him and asked to speak to him again. Mr. Todashev's son already had a plane ticket to leave the United States and go back to Russia to visit with his family. He was assured by the FBI that this would be the last time that they wanted to speak to him, and he delayed his trip home to meet with the FBI because of, apparently, an effort to want to be cooperative. And he didn't survive that second question.
Some of the friends